Tonight is the 27th of August, 2011, and we are starting on the Dhammapada tonight. This Dhammapada is one of the most important books in the Buddhist scriptures, and probably the best known. So much so, some people say its popularity has raised it to the ranks of a world religious classic. This is the second book of the Khuddaka Nikaya, and consists of 423 verses in 26 chapters. There are already many translations of it in English, and has also been translated into several languages in the world. And this anthology of verses contains a compendium of the Buddha's teachings, comprising all the essential principles elaborated in the Pali Canon, including ethics, practice, wisdom, etc. So let's go into the first chapter. Okay, in the first chapter, chapter 1 is Yamaka Vaga, chapter on the pairs of verses. The first verse, number 1. Mind precedes all states, all mental states, all states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-made. If with an impure mind a person speaks or acts, suffering follows him like the wheel that follows the foot of the ox. Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-made. If with a pure mind a person speaks or acts, happiness follows him like his never-departing shadow. These two verses are often quoted. Says all states, all mental states are preceded by mind. Just like, although it says Dhamma, although it says mental states, we must understand physical states. Although we differentiate between mental states and physical states, they have one thing in common, is that both are also consciousness, because the physical states are defined by these four elements: earth, water, fire, wind. The characteristics of hardness represents earth. Water is liquid, which has the property of cohering together, so liquids. And then third, earth, water, fire is a heat element, or the lack of it. Wind or air is the motion element. So these four things, we analyze it, they are perceptions, perceptions of movement, perceptions of heat and all that. So actually it's a type of consciousness. So whether it's a mental state or physical state, you can say it's all preceded by mind. For example, if you want to move our hand, the mind must have the intention to move before you can move your hand. So all we can see clearly that all mental states are preceded by mind, but we don't see so clearly that physical states are preceded by mind. But we know, like in this world, if people's minds are corrupt, if people do a lot of evil deeds, then the world can change. We went through the sutta on the beginnings of the world in the Digha Nikaya, and you saw or you heard how the world changed according to, as people's greed increased, the conditions in the world became worse, and sickness also multiplied. When greed, hatred and delusion increases or multiplies, then the world conditions deteriorate. So, like sometimes people's karma is very bad, then you might have drought, no rain, or sometimes you might have cyclone, hurricane, and all that. So, because of people's wrong actions, unskillful actions. So, mind precedes all states. Mind is their chief, they are all mind-made. So, if we have an impure mind, an evil mind, suffering will be the consequence. But if we have a pure mind, or when we say pure or good mind, in Buddhism it means we benefit people rather than harm people. And then happiness follows us all the time. Number 3, he abused me, he struck me, he overpowered me, he robbed me. Those who harbor such thoughts do not still the hatred. He abused me, he struck me, he overpowered me, he robbed me. Those who do not harbor such thoughts still the hatred. Sometimes when somebody does us wrong, if we accept it as our karma, then the matter is over. But some people, when somebody does something not so good to them, then they harbor anger, then this anger turns to hatred. So people fight because of this. Remember a few years ago, one of our devotees told me that he had 2 friends and they were quite close friends. But because of some small matter, one of them was very angry. He came and threatened the other person with a parang, machete. Although he didn't use it, he just threatened him, put the machete on his throat. And then a few days later, the second fellow came with his brother, also with machete, and chopped him up, nearly cut off his hand. So, no, they didn't chop him up so badly. Then, after some time, he harbored hatred. So he also waited for his opportunity. When one of the brothers was somewhere, he came with a knife and chopped him so badly, and the hand nearly went off. So after that, you see, because of a small matter, 2 friends, the anger can lead to this. And after that, both of them frightened of each other. Don't know who will retaliate again. So all this fighting in the world, all for nothing. Sometimes small matters, we just forget it. We just accept it as our karma. We understand the law of karma vipaka. Whatever happens to us, we think maybe it's something in the past. And it's because of the past karma we suffer now. And then we don't harbor hatred. And then matter is closed. Number 5. Hatred is never appeased by hatred in this world. By non-hatred alone is hatred appeased. This is an eternal law. For there are those who do not realize that one day we all must die. But those who realize this settle their quarrels. So just like a fire, you don't put out fire with fire, you put out fire with water. So if there's a lot of anger, then we counter it with metta, loving kindness. Then only the anger will subside. Also, if you realize that all of us one day must die, and when we die we have to pay for all our actions, good and bad, then we are careful of our karma. If you don't think that one day you're going to die and have to face the day of judgment, then a lot of people live as though they are never going to die. Number 7, just as a storm throws down a weak tree, so does Mara overpower one who lives for the pursuit of pleasures, who is uncontrolled in his senses, immoderate in eating, indolent and dissipated. Just as a storm cannot throw down a rocky mountain, so Mara can never overpower one who lives meditating on the impurities or the loathsomeness of the body, who is controlled in his senses, moderate in eating, and filled with faith and earnest effort. If we are uncontrolled in our senses, we always give in to our weaknesses, whether it be sensual pleasures or liquor or drugs or whatever. Then every time we give in, we form a habit pattern in our mind. We form a habit. So if we keep forming that habit, it's like always we are going into that reach. And the habit pattern becomes very strong. But we make the determination to challenge it. Every time the temptation comes, and then we resist it, we start a new habit pattern in our mind. So each time we resist it, this pattern becomes stronger and stronger. So it's easier. The more times you resist, the more times it becomes easier and easier to resist. But if you always give in, then it becomes easier and easier to give in. Number 9, whoever wears the monk's yellow robe while being depraved, devoid of self-control and truthfulness, he surely is not worthy of the yellow robe. But whoever is purged of depravity, well established in virtues, and filled with self-control and truthfulness, he indeed is worthy of the yellow robe. Sometimes we find some people, like monks, they can say very, very nice things, but they don't practice it. So, as a monk, the standard that people expect is higher than lay people. That's why lay people give respect, they give offerings to monks. If a monk is not worthy of the offerings, then he has to pay dearly for it in the afterlife. 11. Those who mistake the unessential to be essential and the essential to be unessential, dwelling in wrong thoughts, never arrive at the essential. Those who know the essential to be essential and the unessential to be unessential, dwelling in right thoughts, arrive at the essential. This essential can mean the essential things in life. And of course the most essential is to reduce our suffering, to, if possible, eliminate suffering. But even in the worldly sense, everybody, we have a lot of ambitions. But the problem is, although we have so much ambitions, want to do this, want to do that, our time is limited. Human lifespan is only 70-something years now. And our energy is also limited, and our blessings are also limited. So whatever we want to do, we must know our priorities, set our priorities right, and do what is important. We don't have the time, the energy to do everything we like to do. So I always have to remember that. Just yesterday I got a phone call from one of our devotees who used to come here a few months ago. He's 50-something years old, now he's got cancer. Never expected that he'll get cancer. He looks a very tough guy. So you never know when the finger of death will come and touch us. So we have to be prepared. A lot of people, sometimes they come into the Dhamma, we meditate and all these things. We try to achieve this and that state of meditation. Sometimes people forget that actually our conduct is more important. our actions, our karma. Because if you ask yourself, suppose now tomorrow you're going to die, are you prepared for it? If your karma is good, your blessings are enough, then even if death comes tomorrow, you're happy to go because you know you're going to a good place. So when we come to the Dhamma, the most important is to change our skillful karma into skillful karma. Eliminate our bad habits, our unwholesome actions, our unwholesome thoughts and all that, and change for a better, so that anytime we die, we know that we are going to a good place. Some people, they strive very hard, either in meditation or in chanting the Buddha's name or in practice of mantras and all this, but sometimes they forget that the karma is very important. A few years ago, I went to Telok Intan to give a Dhamma talk, and those devotees asked me, there was this old lady who just died a few days ago, and they said she had been chanting the Buddha's name for 30 over years. Just a few days before she passed away, she started crying. A whole day crying. They asked her why. He said, who took away all my clothes? I have no clothes to wear. So she saw herself naked. But everybody saw that she was not naked. So it shows, although she has been practicing Buddhism, but she is not practicing the right way. So she only chants the Buddha's name, but never practice Sila, which is extremely important. The most important are two things, right view and Sila. Sila is our conduct, to practice wholesome actions rather than unwholesome, not to harm others. And then right view is to understand the working of karma, and if possible, Aryan right view, understand the Four Noble Truths, which you can only get by listening to the earlier suttas. And also like generosity, also important. These are basic things that a Buddhist should practice, and not aim for higher things without practicing the basic things. After you have practiced the basic things, you have your foundation in dana, in sila, in right view, then you can practice other things. So if not, when death comes, you are not prepared. Number 13, just as the rain breaks through an ill-thatched house, even so passion penetrates an undeveloped mind. 14, just as the rain does not break through a well-thatched house, even so passion never penetrates a well-developed mind. This well-developed mind, bhavitang, subhavitang, is from bhavana, from the word bhavana. Bhavana is development, and it means development of the mind. And development of the mind means mind where the five hindrances are eliminated or reduced. And that only comes about through some samadhi. If you can develop the jhanas, then the five hindrances are eliminated. Eliminated means it's cut to such a low level, there is no more a hindrance. Not that it's not there entirely. So if the mind is strong, a concentrated mind, then you are not moved easily by emotions. And passion is one of the emotions. It's a type of emotion. You can say passion is equivalent to emotion, because passion and emotion, either it can be passion for sensual pleasures, passion for somebody, or the negative part is the anger. And you cannot get what you want, the desire turns into anger and hatred. So if you allow the mind to be extremely happy one day, then when you are disappointed, then it becomes extremely sad. another day. So that is just like the rain breaking through the ill-thatched house. But if the mind is strong, then it's not easily shaken by the emotions. So the rain does not break through. 15. The evildoer grieves here. He grieves hereafter. He grieves in both worlds. He laments and is afflicted, recollecting his own impure deeds. The doer, 16. The doer of good rejoices here. He rejoices hereafter. He rejoices in both worlds. He rejoices and exults, recollecting his own pure deeds. If we do evil, then just when we are about to die, then we know we know the consequences that are coming. Then the mind will be extremely disturbed. There are some people, the last few days before they die, they are always crying. So you grieve here, and the next afterlife, you grieve again when you suffer. Either you suffer in the ghost realm or the animal realm or in the hell realm. But if you do good, then a few days before you die, you know you're going to a good place, all the signs are there, then you rejoice. And after you pass away again, you are happy. 17. The evildoer suffers here, he suffers hereafter, he suffers in both worlds. The thought, evil have I done, torments him, and he suffers even more when gone to realms of woe. 18. The doer of good delights here, he delights hereafter, he delights in both worlds. The thought, good have I done, delights him, and he delights even more when gone to realms of bliss. So if we do evil, although sometimes when we do evil, we have a lawyer in our mind giving us all kinds of excuses why we should do it. But later, our conscience will tell us if we have done wrong, and remorse will torment us if we remember that we have done evil, harm somebody, harm some being, then you suffer here and hereafter. 19. Although he recites many sacred texts, if he does not act accordingly, that heedless man is like a cowherd who only counts the cattle of others. He does not partake of the blessings of a holy life. 20. Although he recites few sacred texts, if he puts the Dhamma into practice, forsaking lust, hatred and delusion, with true wisdom and emancipated mind, clinging to nothing in this or any other world, he indeed partakes of the blessings of a holy life. So being able to chant, all that are not so important. What is important is for a monk, is to cut our greed, hatred and delusion. Not only monk, even lay people, and to let go, not to cling to all the things in the world that give us happiness. We must accept it, that we have to let go of everything very soon. So the sooner we get used to it, the better. So we finish one chapter. Go to the next one. Chapter 2, Appamada Vaga, heedfulness. 21. Heedfulness is the path to the deathless. Heedlessness is the path to death. The heedful do not die. The heedless are already dead. 22. Clearly understanding this excellence of heedfulness, the wise exult therein and enjoy the resort of the noble ones. So, heedfulness is diligence in the practice of the holy life. And if we practice well, we reach the deathless state. So we do not die. In the Bible, Jesus started to gather his disciples, and he gathered these, many of his disciples were fishermen. And he told one disciple to follow him. And the disciple said, "Wait, Lord, until I bury this relative of mine." His close relative had passed away, and he thought he has to do his duty to bury the relative. And Jesus told him, "Let the dead bury the dead. I will make you fishers of men." So this ordinary people who do not practice the spiritual path are regarded as already dead, as good as dead, because you don't make any progress in the spiritual path. You are not living as you should. You might as well be dead. So that's what is meant. The heedless are already dead. So we have this human life, which is so valuable, because only here we can make progress on the spiritual path. Even devas envy us if we have the chance to study the Dhamma. 23. The wise ones, ever meditative and steadfastly persevering, experience Nibbana, the incomparable freedom from bondage. So, those who strive on the spiritual path can experience Nibbana here and now. Nibbana is the elimination or total cessation of greed, hatred and delusion. 24. Ever grows the glory of one who is energetic, mindful and pure in conduct, discerning and self-controlled, righteous and heedful. We read in the previous suttas that a lot of these devas, they, although we don't see them, they know what we are doing. So like those monks who practice very well, here the Buddha says, ever grows the glory of one who is energetic. So even the devas will pay respect. We saw in the sutta sometimes the devas from far away, halfway in the sky, they bow and pay respect to those arahants. 25. By effort and heedfulness, discipline and self-mastery, let the wise one make for himself an island which no flood can overwhelm. So if we put in the effort, heedfulness, discipline ourselves, then if we attain any one of the Aryan stages, then we have landed ourselves on an island and no flood can overwhelm us. We are secure, already safe. Once a person becomes an Arya, even the lowest Arya, the first path, will never fall into the woeful plains again. 26. The foolish and ignorant indulge in heedlessness, carelessness, but the wise one guards heedfulness as his best treasure. This being heedful, being diligent is the best thing we can do. The Buddha said there's one thing that can benefit us in this life and in the future life. What is that one thing? Diligence or heedfulness. Putting effort on the spiritual path. But people who are foolish and ignorant, they are careless. They only want to enjoy what is available in the world. So then later they have to pay for it with tears. 27. Do not give way to heedlessness. Do not indulge in sensual pleasures. Only the heedful and meditative attain great happiness. People who are careless like to indulge in sensual pleasures, wine, women and song. And then when they are old, then they find they have spent all their money. And when they are poor, all their friends run away. and they have wasted their body. The body becomes so weak, all kinds of sickness come upon them. No money, no health, and they know they are going to a woeful place of rebirth. That time they will regret. 28. Just as one upon the summit of a mountain beholds the groundlings, even so, when the wise man casts away heedlessness by heedfulness and ascends a high tower of wisdom, this sorrowless sage beholds the sorrowing and foolish multitude. It's like a person gone to the top of a mountain, he looks below, all the people standing below. So when a person advances on the spiritual path and is secure, then he sees all the common people all headed for the woeful plains. But the spiritual path is a lonely path. The Indian saying, the spiritual path is the path of the alone, to the alone, by the alone. 29. Heedful among the heedless, wide awake among the sleepy, the wise man advances like a swift horse, leaving behind a weak nag. This nag is a horse or a pony. So, if we make effort on the spiritual path, then we make spiritual progress and overtake a lot of careless people. Number 30. By heedfulness did Indra become the overlord of the gods. Heedfulness is ever praised and heedlessness ever despised. This Indra Magava must be Sakadeva Raja. In the Sutta Samyutta Nikaya, it is said that Sakadeva Raja, he did a lot of good deeds while in the human realm to benefit people. He built roads, bridges to benefit a lot of people and other good deeds. So he was born as a Sakadeva Raja. 31. The monk who delights in heedfulness and looks with fear at heedlessness advances like fire, burning all fetters, subtle and coarse. So a monk, if he makes a lot of effort, then he destroys all the fetters, all the defilements like fire. 32. The monk who delights in heedfulness and looks with fear at heedlessness will not fall. He is close to Nibbana. On the spiritual path, it's very easy to sidetrack. It's very easy to go backwards, to regress. Very easy to fall. But if we are careful and we are always remembering impermanence and remembering that the woeful plains are always waiting for us until we have attained Aryahood, then we should strive until we attain at least a stage of Aryahood. Then we are secure. So we won't fall. We come to chapter 3, Chitta Vaga, mind. 33. Just as an arrow maker straightens an arrow shaft, even so the discerning person straightens his mind, so fickle and unsteady, so difficult to guard and control. So a person who makes arrows, he has to straighten the shaft, make it very straight. Even so, we have to discipline our mind and make it straight. Otherwise, it's like a monkey, fickle and unsteady, so difficult to guard and control. But even though it is difficult to guard and control, we have to guard and control it so that we become master of the mind rather than the mind become master of us, overpower us. We need to control our emotions instead of letting the emotions control us. 34. As a fish when pulled out of water and cast on land, drops and quivers, Even so is this mind agitated. Hence one should leave the realm of Mara. So our mind is agitated when we dwell on the six senses. That is the realm of Mara. Mara is always tempting us at the six sense doors with beautiful sights, lovely sounds, fragrant smells, nice food, nice touch, and mind-boggling things to play. Like nowadays, people like to play computer games and all that. So, why is the mind agitated? Firstly, because it likes to jump from one sense door to another sense door. Secondly, in the six sense bases, among the six sense objects, this is not our natural home. Our natural home is back deep in the mind. And we come out of the mind and go into the world. It's out of our natural habitat. That's why the Buddha says we must dwell in our natural habitat, away from these six sense objects. And the way to do it is to bring it back gradually through the four satipatthana, the four objects of satipatthana. Dwell only on the body, feelings, the mind, and Dhamma. And by dwelling only on these four things, slowly it becomes less agitated. And then if you dwell on one only, all the time on one, then the mind becomes one-pointed, and it draws further into the mind. And then it's really, because it's back into the natural home, it's no more agitated. And then you feel the bliss, because you're back at home, the bliss and the delight. 35. Wonderful indeed it is to subdue the mind, so difficult to subdue, ever swift and wandering wherever it desires. A tame mind brings happiness. So this is just like what I mentioned just now, that if we subdue the mind, then tame it, and then it brings happiness and delight. 36. Let the discerning person guard his mind, so difficult to detect and extremely subtle, wandering wherever it desires. A guarded mind brings happiness. In one of the suttas, the Buddha said, an undisciplined mind is a source of great suffering. A disciplined mind is a source of happiness. So, if we don't guard our mind, and then it is uncontrolled, then it is a source of great suffering for us. See, nowadays a lot of people, they have a lot of mental suffering, depression and all that, because they don't know how to guard the mind, how to subdue the mind, how to tame the mind. So only a world teacher like the Buddha can teach us how to be healthy, mentally healthy. 37. Dwelling in the cave without form, the mind wanders far and moves alone. Those who subdue this mind are liberated from the bonds of Mara. This dwelling in the cave probably is the cave of the body. This mind is without form. It wanders far and wide. So we have to discipline it, don't allow it to wander here and there. Then only we are liberated from Mara. Mara is always tempting us, tempting the mind to wander here and there with all the six sense baits. 38. Wisdom is not perfected in one whose mind is not steadfast, who knows not the good teaching, and whose faith wavers. If the mind is not steady, and if you don't know the Dhamma, so you don't have faith, you cannot have wisdom. To have even a little bit of wisdom, the mind must be still. If the mind is not still, it's like a pool or a lake where the water is muddy and the wind moves the surface of the water. You have waves moving. So if you look into the water, you cannot see the fish, you cannot see the plants in the weeds and all that, because the mind is disturbed by the water. So in the same way, we cannot understand ourselves if our mind is moved, if our mind is wavering all the time, wandering all the time. Only when the mind is still, then we can look inwards and understand ourselves and get wisdom. 39. There is no fear for an awakened one whose mind is not sodden or saturated by lust, nor afflicted by hate, and who has gone beyond both merit and demerit. The awakened one, like the Buddha, there's no more lust and no more hate. So I also gone beyond doing good and not doing good. How come gone beyond doing good and not doing good? Because he has no more of a self. Because a person without a self, enlightened being, whatever he does, he does not create karma, because he has no more that self behind the action, no more that force of the ego behind the action. So a person like the Buddha, whatever he does, whatever happens, is unmoving. There's no ego to be moved. That's why sometimes in the suttas we find, especially like the Mahayana suttas, they always say the Buddha is das, ru putong, das unmoving. Number 40, realizing that this body is as fragile as a clay pot, and fortifying this mind with a well-fortified city, fight out Mara with the sword of wisdom, then guarding the conquest, remain unattached. Must realize that this body is fragile, that one day, in a very short time, you will pass away. And so we have to fortify the mind with... How to fortify the mind is to use all the things all the weapons that Buddha gave us. What are these weapons? Like the 4 Satipatthana, the 4 Iddhipada, the 4 right efforts, the 5 faculties, the 5 powers, the 7 factors of requisites of factors of enlightenment, Bojjhanga, 7 Bojjhanga, and then the Noble Eightfold Path. These are all our weapons to fortify our mind. When we practice, we strengthen our mind, fight with Mara, and then guarding the conquest, remain unattached. When we win any of the, as we progress, as we fight, and we win stage by stage, the first Aryan path, then the first Aryan fruition, the second Aryan path, second Aryan fruition. These are all the grounds that we gain. And then when we win, we should be unattached to whatever we gain. We understand no self. 41. Before long, alas, this body will lie upon the earth, cast away and lifeless, like a useless log. This one you must remember very well. As I mentioned to you just now, somebody that was coming here, suddenly he realized that he's got cancer. If we understand really that we're going to die very soon, and we accept it, then when we get cancer, we are not alarmed. We know we're going to die, whether we get cancer or we don't get cancer, we're still going to die. So sometimes people say this person died of cancer, that person died of hepatitis, that person died of heart attack. Actually, basically, all of them died So we all die because of impermanence, not because of this sickness and that sickness. Even if we don't have sickness also, we still must die. 42. Whatever harm an enemy may do to an enemy, or a hater to a hater, an ill-directed mind inflicts on oneself greater harm. What is an ill-directed mind? A mind that does not have right view. If a mind is without right view, then it is directed in the wrong way. And what is the wrong way? The way of greed, hatred, and delusion. So, because of greed, hatred, and delusion, you do all the wrong things. So you are harming yourself more than anyone can harm us. Our greatest enemy is ourselves, and our greatest friend is also ourselves. If you know how to direct your life in the right way, you are your greatest friend. If you don't know and direct your mind, your life in the wrong way, you are your greatest enemy. For example, if somebody he thinks it's very nice to commit adultery, very enjoyable. So he thinks he's doing himself a favor by having this pleasurable relationship. But actually he's harming himself because at the end of it, at the end of life, he has to pay such a high price that it's not worth it. But because people don't understand this law of karma vipaka, so we think we are getting a good bargain. Actually, it's not a good bargain. So it's only by understanding the Dhamma that we understand what is good for us, what is not good for us. 43. Neither mother, father, or any other relative can do one greater good than one's own well-directed mind. This one the same way. Even your parents cannot do more for you than yourself if you know how to direct your mind properly. The most our relatives can do for us is just to benefit us in a material way in this lifetime. But if we know how to benefit ourselves, we not only benefit ourselves in this lifetime, but many, many lifetimes to come. But sometimes our relatives, they want to do something for us that they think is beneficial. Actually, in the long run, it's not beneficial. It seems beneficial only. And then later, when at the end of life, then we realize actually it's not beneficial. Sometimes we do something, it seems not only unbeneficial, sometimes it seems cruel, but it may not be. For example, when the Buddha left his family to take up the life of a renunciant, his father was very hurt, his mother was very hurt, his wife. But after he became enlightened, he came back and helped them with the Dhamma so that they became Arya also. So sometimes, like in this case, you think he's cruel. A lot of people, worldly people, think, how can the Buddha leave the family when the son is just born? And so they think the Buddha is not being human, not being humane. But actually, in that way, he benefits the family more than staying at home. If he stayed at home, how much can he benefit? He can only make them happy, make them secure in the false security, thinking that they are rich, they have a good life, there's a good family and all that. But actually, when we enjoy life, we use up our blessings, and we have to pay for it, and we are short of blessings at the end of life. Then we go to a bad rebirth. Unless you know how to lead your life according to Dhamma, then you can enjoy and build up your blessings. But nothing, even you build up your blessings, as long as you have not become an Arya, you have not got out of this cycle of birth and death, then you are definite to fall into the ghost realm, the animal realm, and the hell realm again and again and again and again. So the biggest favor he has done them is to renounce the family life. When somebody renounces the family life, it hurts the family members very much. But in hurting the family members, they actually, you do them a favor, because then they understand impermanence faster than at their deathbed. If they were to understand impermanence on their deathbed, they cannot do anything about it. But if they see somebody in the family has renounced, and then it hurts them so much, then they realize life is so impermanent. Something like this also can happen. Then they start to let go. When they start to let go, then on their deathbed, they don't have to let go so much. They have already let go. There's something I saw with my mother also. When I renounced, she hurt her a lot. But after that, she let go. In the last few years of her life, there was nothing much to let go already. She had already let go. And she was happy. So I'll end here. Anything to discuss? You can see from here these words of wisdom. Only somebody with great wisdom like the Buddha can speak words like this.
What would you consider inferior men in Buddhism?
The Buddha did not say that women are inferior to men in Buddhism. What the Buddha said was there are certain states a woman cannot achieve. For example, become a Buddha. Why can't a woman become a Buddha? You can understand when you read or you learn how the Buddha struggled to attain enlightenment. In my opinion, the Buddha was already a Sakadagamin when he came back in his last life, because he had met the Buddha Kassapa in the previous life, a previous human life, and he became a disciple of the Buddha Kassapa after hearing the Dhamma. You see, when his friend Gatikara tried to persuade him in that life with the Buddha Kassapa to go and see the Buddha, he refused. He was a Brahmin. He didn't appreciate the Buddha. He said, what's the point of seeing your shaveling monk? So many times his friend pulled him until he could not say no. Then only he went, and he didn't pay respect to the Buddha Kassapa. And then after that, the Buddha Kassapa taught him the Dhamma, and immediately his view changed, so much so that he became a monk. That shows that he attained stream entry. And in that life as a monk under the Buddha Kassapa, he attained at least the first jhana. We know because after that lifetime, he went to Tusita heaven. And coming down from Tusita heaven as Siddhartha Gautama, as a small boy, he could attain the first jhana under the Jambu tree. That shows that he had probably attained it under the Buddha Kassapa. So if he had attained the first jhana under the Buddha Kassapa, he would have become a Sakadagamin. So a Sakadagamin, when he came back in his last life as Siddhartha Gautama, it was natural for him to renounce. So after he renounced, the suffering he went through was so much. The Buddha said, you cannot find another person on the spiritual path who suffered more than him. And he said, at the most, you can find only somebody who equal his suffering. Never more than him, whether it's a past, present or future. So that type of suffering for a person when like a Sakadagamin, he comes back in his last life, there's no Dhamma. Because there's no Dhamma in the world, he has to struggle extremely hard. There's no proper teacher. So he struggled so hard until he nearly died. That type of suffering a woman cannot take. Because the woman has a nature to protect life. That's why it's the nature of a woman to look after babies, to bring up babies, because it's their nature to protect. So that's why it's very rare for a woman to find a woman who can come to that stage of willing to kill. The Buddha was willing to kill himself to attain enlightenment. He struggled until he was all bones. The eyes jutted in, the bones jutted out, and he had no stomach. When he touched his stomach, he could feel his spine. He had no backside. So he said, let the blood dry up. You continue his struggle. It doesn't matter. The blood dry up and the bones wither away. But he never slacken his energy. That type of effort a woman cannot attain. So that's why a woman cannot become a Buddha. But a woman can become a Arahant, same as man. So even men also, a lot of men cannot become a Buddha because it takes so much effort. So a woman can become a Arahant, which is equivalent. The enlightenment is the same. A woman cannot become a wheel-turning monarch, who rules the whole world. A woman cannot become Sakadeva Raja. So only these few things a woman cannot become. Cannot become a Brahma. Okay? Otherwise, a woman is not inferior to a man.
Just looking at the way Bhikkhunis and Bhikkhunis say they also take Upasambhava become Bhikkhuni. He has to be presided over by some of Bhikkhunis as well as some of Bhikkhus. Whereas for men, it's just some of Bhikkhus.
You see, if you look into Vinaya books, a Bhikkhuni, the Vinaya rules seem to be more rules for the nun, for the Bhikkhuni than for the Bhikkhu. And it has to do with probably with women being more emotional, because in women the emotions are stronger. So maybe because of that. Also because the women are the weaker sex. The Buddha at first was reluctant to ordain nuns. And my opinion is that because the Buddha didn't want to take up this burden of looking after nuns. Once nuns ordain, if they live on their own, they might come to harm, they might be raped and all that. So the nuns, they always had to stay close to the monks. And the monks had to kind of look after them. Every 2 weeks they have to come for a teaching. And the Vasa period, rains period, they cannot stay alone. They have to stay with the monks and all that. They cannot travel alone also and all these things. So that is. So it's not that the Buddha was heartless, didn't want to ordain women. It's just that it's a burden to the monks. But like now what is happening in the West is they ordain women, but they don't allow the women to stay with the monks. The women go off and stay on their own. Do you think it's easy for the women to look after the monastery? All women?
Gain what you first, because it's the first step of the Noble Eightfold Path. And yet, you is something that is very, very difficult to give up, especially if we are very opinionated. And because of our ego, we tend to cling on to our own worldview of things. And If we don't give up our own view, it's very difficult to gain right view. And I think this advice, how do we slowly give up our own opinions and views and misconceptions?
This kind of thing is very difficult because you can say a lot, but each person is different. So whether the Dhamma is very well explained by the Buddha already, and also the Vinaya, but a lot of people find it hard to follow because of their own personal opinions, because of their own personal pride and all these things. So it's not to me. There's not much point to talk a lot about it. Everything the Buddha has stated. So it's up to the person to practice according to what the Buddha says. As I mentioned a few times already. The Buddha said there are two foundations before a person can proceed to practice. One is moral conduct, the other one is right view. And I always say that right view is from listening to the Dhamma and understanding the Dhamma. If a person becomes a monk long term, then he stays with the teacher long, then the teacher will have a responsibility to teach him, and then the teacher is only willing to teach him depending on the conduct of the monk. If the conduct of the monk is easy to teach, wants to be disciplined, who wants to be taught, then the teacher will teach him. The teacher is not going to teach every pupil in the monastery. He will only teach those that are willing to learn. So it's silly to make an effort to teach everybody the same thing. It's not. It's pointless. Only those who are willing to learn, who come to ask and all that, will the teacher teach. So it's the same with the Buddha. The Buddha, you find he had many disciples who were not willing to listen to even to a Sammasambuddha like the Buddha. So you can see from the suttas and the Vinaya books. So it's the Buddha said, I only teach tameable men. Even the Buddha cannot teach everybody, only tameable men, those who are willing to be tamed by him.
Very much a personal character, people like in the Metta Sutta, Mudu is the soft, hard, easy to mold and make. So these are qualities that sometimes some people are born with, but some tend to be very strong-minded. Which means we can be very strong-minded, we can read the suttas again and again, and yet we hold on and keep on to our opinion. That means nothing to do again, we don't change our character.
Yeah. You see, if you read the story of Milarepa, the greatest Tibetan yogi who achieved such high level, when he came to his master, the master saw he had a lot of arrogance. So the master purposely made him carry a lot of wood up the high hill to build a hut for him. And then after he put so much effort, took maybe a few months to build the hut, and the master looked at it and said, "Oh, I don't like that place. You dismantle the whole hut and build it again somewhere else." And he had to dismantle the whole hut and build it again. And after he finished, after so much sweat, the master again said he didn't like the site and asked him to move again. So, I mean, how many pupils are willing to do that? So it's no point to even make the effort to teach a pupil if he's not the type. But even this Bodhidharma, when he went to China, he refused to accept any disciples. And then when one of the monks came to him to plead to be his disciple, he said, I only accept disciples when the snow turns red. Then the disciple took the knife, chopped his hand until the blood flew all over the snow, and the snow turned red. Then only accepted him.